What's happening, Hardscapers? This is episode 139 of the How to Hardscape podcast, where we talk about how you can start and grow your hardscaping business. And in today's episode, we are joined by Jeff Raley. He is the founder of Groundwork, a software that's going to help you pre-qualify leads. And I thought this was the perfect conversation to have, especially in this off season, that you can implement a tool while you have some time here to help systematize part of your business, especially one that's so important as pre-qualifying leads. So let's get into today's episode. Today, I'm joined by Jeff Raley. He is the founder of Groundwork, a software that will help you and your business pre-qualify leads, improving your sales process in the process. Jeff, thanks so much for joining me on the show today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Michael.
Jeff, let's get started to get to learn a little bit more about yourself, the person behind Groundwork, this software. What was the catalyst that brought you to today in starting this software? But let's get to know about yourself in the industry or anything that brought you to this. Let's get to know a little bit more about Jeff.
Yeah, so actually, I was one of those high school kids who started, with a push mower, believe it or not, and it graduated myself. I was telling somebody yesterday, like, I was eventually the high schooler who was like towing around a 48-inch mower, and like actually had a pretty decent business in high school, mostly doing just like lawn maintenance stuff. But then went to college and continued that business while I was in college for a good bit. But then I got into general contracting on the commercial side of things. So kind of a different aspect of kind of the trades, but have done a bunch of different things since then. And part of that has been technology, and really technology in the trades is kind of where I really have expertise. And part of that story is also that my wife's an interior designer. So we've kind of bought and blown up and put back together several houses along the way. And that really led me to understand the inefficiency, really all of the different things that I've done across my career really let me understand that the sales process, the old school way of selling for contractors is just that. It's old school. And like, I just started thinking like, man, is there a better way to do this? And that kind of got me to thinking about, hey, how could we rethink the sales process? And that, started putting some things together. One thing led to another, and built a solution. And, a couple years later, here we are.
Absolutely. And with that, I love the idea behind this software because pre-qualification is so important in the process. And I think back to when I first started my business, and anybody that called me, I went out and took a look at them, even if that meant showing up and realizing that, this isn't even a job that I'm qualified to take on, or it's just too small for me to even do. So the amount of time savings just starting out and being able to use this pre-qualification process and refine it, just opened up so many more doors to me in that. What was the reason behind creating this software specifically for pre-qualification? Can you get into why you chose to solve that problem for contractors?
Yeah, honestly, it started a little bit from the homeowner's perspective. Like me as a homeowner, I actually just was messing around. We bought a house outside of Indianapolis here, and I was doing some of the work as we were renovating it. But eventually needed some boxwoods ripped out and just some trees, elevate the canopy on a couple of trees we had in the front yard. And I just took a video of it because I was like, man, I'm not really interested in like, waiting around. Like I got work to do, like maybe I could send a video to describe the work, and, that'd be kind of interesting, and see if contractors bite on it, to kind of save me some time as a homeowner. And so that went really well. Like contractors liked it, it was just a good start to the conversation. And with a simple project like that, I got a couple of numbers back from the contractors I sent the video out to, and actually put a little scope together, like just like, hey, here's what I want, and describe the project on the video and sent it to them. Just honestly, it was just like as simple as you can imagine in a Google Slides presentation.
Nice.
And that was kind of the first first thing that I tried. And then I started to think, you know what, like the higher end contractors that like that are busy, that want to, kind of offer that elevated experience to the homeowner. And they want to save time in their sales process. Like maybe that's the business model. Maybe I should just like give a tool to contractors so that they can run a better sales process. And really that's exactly what it turned out to be. So I started just like asking contractors, guys that I knew, and like other people who were around the renovation we were doing here, is like, hey, what if this were a thing? What if you got a video before you like trotted yourself across town? And they're like, yeah, that would be really awesome. I was like, well, like I built this thing, you want to try it out? And they're like, yeah, so that's really how the first couple of customers came about, was just people that I knew around the Indianapolis area, and then kind of in the greater Midwest region. And now we've got customers all over the place.
Definitely. And with that, I like that you mentioned like you came at it from the sort of client perspective of it and thinking about them, because that's something that I think about my business, my time first, but ultimately this is being more value to my clients, my prospective clients as well. We're saving each other time in going about this process. I also think of it as you're kind of weeding out the clients that aren't quite serious if they're not willing to go about this process. Is that how you kind of see it as well with your clients that come on board?
Yeah, I mean, it's truly kind of a win-win scenario, right? Homeowners expect, a process that's quick, easy, and, doesn't require a lot of effort, right? They're getting, their toilet paper delivered via Amazon, their groceries delivered in some cases, right? Like there's a lot of just like snap your fingers, get what you want type of stuff. And, I don't think we're in a spot where it's ever going to be like, hey, I put in like, I submit a video and like augmented reality and like, a big algorithm like chunks out the right price for a project, right? Like I don't think we'll get there, but we're a step closer with the way that we run. We help contractors run their process of just making it easier. And the homeowners want that, right? Like they want, when we talk to contractors who are looking at our stuff, part of the sales process is like, absolutely, you're saving yourselves time by like not running appointments that aren't a good fit for you, or too small, or just like sometimes it's work that you can't even do. Just, that you just don't do that type of thing. And, that pre-qualification process, absolutely. But the other aspect of it is just like the customer experience side of things. Homeowners respect a contractor that's got their stuff together and has a process, and isn't kind of fumbling over themselves with like a blank sheet of paper on the job. Like there's just like that experience just is kind of clunky, with all the technology we've got. It just seemed like there was an opportunity to like just kind of elevate that experience. And like I'm a big advocate for contractors. Like our goal is to just make contractors look like the awesome people that they are, instead of like just the preconception that contractors are kind of a schlubby, like kind of backwoods, don't have their stuff together. So that's kind of a little bit of our mission too, is just like, you hear people talk about bringing dignity back to the trades, but that's a lot of what it is, right? Like these are hardworking guys. Like I love to get my hands dirty. I've always got something going on, and like I respect that. And it's a lot of the ethos of what we bring to the through the business and how we serve our clients.
Walk me through the process from where a client finds, say, from when the client finds a contractor. Where does Groundwork come into place? How does the contractor implement it to start that pre-qualification phase? And then what are the touch points along the way through Groundwork? Give us a little bit of a background in terms of how that kind of process comes together for the contractor.
Yeah, so our system launches, instead of like what I call the boring contact us form on everybody's website. We usually replace that contact us box, and we have some messaging on the site we help every contractor with. We kind of walk you through getting our kickoff form on the website, and it's messaged a little differently, and it's all text based. So the homeowner enters their information into that kickoff form, and then they're sent a text message, and they're walked through the process of filling out information about their project, uploading a project video so the contractor can see what's going on. We encourage the homeowner to talk through that video and give them instructions on what to include. And so that's kind of the homeowner experience. And then also if you get a phone call, we've got a kind of what we call the manual kickoff process that just allows contractors to go ahead and say, hey, I'm going to enter your information here, and you'll get a text message. And like, imagine that experience for the homeowner is like, oh, wow, this guy texted me right away. Like, this is way better than like, trading phone calls. We try to keep it really easy. But there's nothing for the homeowner to download. It's a really easy process for the homeowner, and it's kind of usually surprising for them, like, oh wow, this is pretty easy. And our stuff just uses a web browser to tap into the phone camera on any smartphone. So it's pretty slick. Not anything like super magical with it. It's just kind of like some tweaks on all the things that we do day to day, and like the way we communicate with our friends and family. And we've just kind of adapted it to the process of the sales process for contractors.
From that initial text that the client gets and opening up a web browser from that, do they have to create a login or anything like that? Or is that kind of already built into the program?
Yeah, so the homeowner doesn't have a login. We do have kind of like a public project page where they can kind of get a summary of their project, but they don't have to log in for it.
Good.
Yeah, it's the less passwords we can force them, or like the less gates we can. That's a big reason we have not released an app quite yet, and probably will never release a homeowner facing app. We've had requests from our customers to build an application so they don't have to log in through their browser. But the reality is, asking somebody to download an app on their cell phone is like, there's some stat out there where like 99% of the app activity is concentrated to like 5 apps on a phone. And it's like Facebook, Instagram, probably TikTok now in the last couple of years, but like there's not many, right? So you're fighting for some pretty precious real estate there. So we just decided to make it, easy and, just all web-based.
Yeah, I feel like having the client do a project walkthrough with their phone and video, that's a friction point enough, right? Where the clients that aren't meant for us, they won't go through that process. But then adding more friction points to that whole client onboarding process would definitely be a big deterrent. So I like that you've thought about that with this. What if a client doesn't want to go through the process? Do we just chalk that up as a client that just wasn't meant for us? Or is there another way that the clients through that messaging process can get in contact with us and just say, hey, I just don't know technology. I don't know how to do this, but this is kind of what I want. How does that go about?
Yeah. So good question. We get that question a good bit of like, hey, I deal with older clients. And unless your client has a flip phone, like if they got a flip phone, like they're probably not going to play ball, right? Like and maybe they're going to be a great client and you handle them in a different process. But if they've got a smartphone, likely they're texting, and likely they, even if they're a little bit more mature in years, they probably got, their grandkids, videos of their grandkids going on their phone. That the functionality that we ask them to access, or what we ask them to do, is basically just text and pictures and photo, like access the phone or the camera on your phone. So it's pretty straightforward. So we've got customers who've been really successful using the line of like, hey, do you have grandkids? And if they have grandkids, likely they're texting and sharing photos and videos of their grandkids. So that's one aspect of it. The tech hurdle is really not that high, just because everybody, uses their phones for all those things. But we really leave the process up to the contractor. One of our hardscape contractors, like early customers, he honestly, I'd have to go back and check, but he probably has close to 1,000 video project walkthroughs from customers. Now he's been a customer for a couple of years, but he will not go do a sales appointment without the video. Like that is a requirement. So he's pretty strict about it. But then we have other contractors that, aren't as strict. Maybe they reserve this tool for somebody who's, an hour away, right? And like they want to qualify before they make that long trip across town. So it's pretty flexible. It just depends on how contractors want to use it. I will say the more you lean into it, the more you get out of it, just as with anything. But yeah, that's kind of how we handle some of that, process. And if it comes down to it, maybe you have one salesperson that, ends up being the kind of the person that handles the virtual video stuff, and one person does running a traditional process. It really depends on how you want to run it. The system's pretty flexible in allowing all that stuff.
Yeah, I like that. And I like, because I think about my process right now, and we end up doing a lot of back and forth with potential clients in the fact that I don't show up to the job site without them sending me a photo. Anyways, video through email is clunky. It's not kind of what email is really necessarily meant for. So this kind of tool in the process really helps to show the client that I'm invested into my business. I'm just not a fly-by-night contractor. I'm invested into my business. I have a process that I've thoroughly thought through, and I'm sure it just looks great for the contractors that implement this sort of thing. Is this the feedback that you get from people using Groundwork in their business? What kind of feedback do you get? Let's go with that.
Yeah. So we have absolutely, like, one of our contractors, he's outside of the hardscape industry, but it's a good example. He's actually been able to increase his prices because of this process, because he's quicker to respond. He's able to give feedback quicker, specific to that user's or that homeowner's project. And he just looks better than the competition. So we've seen some of that, absolutely. And it all goes back to brand building. And we've done some things in the product where, this is all branded for the contractors that we work with. So the homeowner is going through, your company's onboarding system. They don't really realize they're going through the Groundwork products system. It just, we really are a champion to make you look good. So it's your branding, your like colors are throughout the system. And we actually give you the opportunity to share information about your company as well throughout this experience as well. And so, yeah, that's a part of what we're really have been pushing on recently, is just how do we bolster the brand of the companies even more so than we already are, and make the experience that much better. And that's really where, from a feedback perspective, the stuff it's easy to kind of like, the really soundbiteable thing is like, hey, don't drive across town and like waste your time. Like that's a real easy thing for us to talk about, and we do that really well. But like on like kind of the visionary side of things, like where do you want your business to go? That's when we really get people to lean in and say like, hey, this has really helped me to really change the way that I run my business, just because of kind of some of the brand building aspects of the product.
With this put together, I'm sure you've heard your fair share of objections from contractors looking at this tool, thinking whether or not it's for them. I'm going to throw one at you just because it's an obvious one, but I also want to expand on this further and get to more objections that you might hear. But the one obvious one would be the cost. How does a contractor justify spending a monthly amount on a software to help them in their pre-qualification process? If it's free 99, it's much easier for them to swallow a free tool. Obviously, tools can't be free, especially a software that's going to implement a system. How does a contractor in their mind justify paying a monthly cost for something like this?
Yeah, so one of our earlier customers is a guy, Red Oak Landscaping in the St. Louis area, and he's kind of a little bit on the outskirts of St. Louis, and he got a call the day after we launched the product with him, and this is maybe a year and a half ago now. And he called me after that experience and was like, hey, this thing just paid for itself for, month number one. I was like, really? He said, yeah, I got a call and I sent them the link. They uploaded a video and I said, yeah, was it not a project that was a good fit for you? He goes, actually, it was just a really simple patio, like a 10 by 10. He's like, I just gave him a price range and, I'm going to see him later this week. So in other words, he was able to really get them down the line from a sales perspective because he understood the project. That customer felt heard, even though it was a virtual kind of interaction. So those experience, we hear that all the time. I know there's always like kind of that ROI conversation of, but man, I'm very confident that, if contractors lean into the process, like, the payback period is days, if, maybe weeks, but like, it's pretty, high ROI for contractors that we've seen go through the process. So yeah, that's typically the way I answer that type of thing. And, sometimes I get into like, well, how many sales appointments do you run in a week? How much do you think that costs you? Right? Like, how many of those appointments don't turn into anything and end up being a waste of time? Like, well, there's cost to that, right? So if we can cut those out, how does that work? So there's some math to be done there too. And, even back of the napkin math, like the ROI turns out to be pretty advantageous.
Yeah. And I talk with a lot of contractors, and especially contractors that may be just starting out or maybe trying to figure out their numbers. That's kind of what I've tried to do with How to Hardscape. But I find that, especially, just talking with them about, say, a monthly paid software that helps them, know their numbers. That type of software, this type of software where it saves your time, these are almost necessities at this point in business, because especially at the very least having some sort of system and process to help you save your time, because if you think you can't afford it, you're likely the contractor that needs it most, right? In terms
Yeah.
of saving your time and saving your money.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing that we talk about, especially in the hardscape world, where there's like, some big projects, right? Some of the contractors we work with are, average contract size like over 100,000, right? And that, so it's like, if you win one of those, right, and we're any part of that process, like that gets paid for. But yeah, I think there's like, it kind of goes back to scarcity mindset versus like a growth mindset, right? Of like, what are you going to do to invest in your business? How do you want to see your business grow? What type of business do you want to be? Those are all questions as you're like, as contractors evaluate their process and the tools that they're using that, like you said, if you're thinking you might not be the one, but you're looking, it's kind of like, yeah, you're looking because you want to get better. You need to like up your game in one way or another. And I think honestly, when we get contractors that are really hemming and hawing, it's because they are not committed to doing that work of really, because that is part of the business, right? There's like the production side and like all of the kind of the engineering to get your projects delivered correctly and to make happy customers, right? But like kind of the back end business process side of things is really where business is made. There's a lot of guys that can go deliver projects, but I mean, a lot of them, right? But how many are actually running a business and not just building projects? There are simple tools. I think we're one of them that really can help you become that business owner as opposed to just somebody who builds projects.
And I'm constantly looking to the future when and if I decide to scale my business, and thinking about putting something in place for, say, a salesperson that I bring on, or a couple of salespeople that I bring on, and having something that is just defined. Like, this is what we do. You take it from there, as opposed to them each having their own kind of set of questions that they ask clients and try to figure out if it's the right fit or not for them to go out and spend their time to meet with that client. Having something in place that is there, it's defined, and they each get the exact same information, depending on what the client sends them. But having that system in place really helps a business to scale.
Yeah, we've talked to, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to contractors and they're like, yeah, I just lost my lead sales guy. Like either he went out on his own or like went to a competitor, and like that's painful and challenging. And we think that we make good salespeople better. Really, that's kind of, we certainly don't replace that person. We just make good salespeople better. And right now the demand is so high, right? Like contractors are just like beating off leads with their stick, with a stick, if they're, doing anything on the marketing side correctly. So yeah, there's a lot of like kind of systemization that we kind of we give to contractors as a part of our, I mean, that's really what it is, right? It's a sales system. And we've had stories of customers that are like opening up new offices in like the neighboring town, or like, kind of expanding geographically. And our tool gives them a great chance to just like, instead of driving to that next city or next location, every day, you can really kind of time block your visits on deals that are good things to be going after by the pre-qualification. So there's a lot of like scalability and just like systemization that I think a lot of contractors crave, that we think we do a pretty good job on.
Definitely. Closing down here, I did forget to ask you in the process, once the client sends information, sends a video, sends photos, everything that they need to send, where does that contractor pick that up from there? Do they have access to the client's phone number that they can just get on a call, say, okay, or do they, is it a text, email? Where does that go from there really quickly here?
Yeah, so there's I'm sure contractors, and I mean, shoot, I do this in my business with different contractors I'm chatting with. You get a text message from a homeowner, or like eventually conversation goes to text, and then it's like you got 4 of those text chains in the week, and then it's like a bunch of random numbers in your text chain. You're like, which one was, Sally, and which one was Bob? And like, I don't know, like this is all confusing. So like our system manages that text message volley. So instead of having that in your personal inbox text message mess with all your buddies and friends and family and whatever else, we actually kind of manage that in each what we call a lead card. So that's largely what is the case. Like we certainly alert contractors when a new lead comes in and all that. But then it all goes to text message. We found that's like the most convenient, the way that people like to communicate if they're actually serious about the project. It's just quicker and easier for everybody. So that's the thing. And then again, there's some flexibility, right? How do you want to run your process? Do you do the text message stuff? We have some templates and other things in the system that make it easy to like kind of move the conversation forward. But a lot of people just pick up the phone and call, right? You get the video, you do a little texting back and forth, and eventually you say, hey, this is something that's worth a phone call. Let's schedule a phone call, or maybe schedule an in-person appointment at that point to get more information. But that's kind of the way it goes after that initial submission.
Jeff, thanks so much for your time here today and explaining this whole process to our audience, providing the value that you have. Where can our audience go to learn more about yourself, Groundwork, anywhere that you want to send them to?
Yeah, you can find me on find us on Instagram, Facebook, or our website is all Hello Groundwork. So just like it sounds, there's no S on Groundworks. It's just Groundwork. HelloGroundwork.com. Check us out. There's a bunch of information on the website. We do work outside of the hardscape and outdoor living space, but that's the majority of our contractors in outdoor living. So we'd love to get any feedback and chat with anybody in the audience who might want to learn a little bit more about what we do.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Jeff.
All right. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Visit us at howtohardscape.com for more information on this subject. Let us know what you want to learn about in future episodes by reaching out to us on our social channels. We are at How to Hardscape wherever you can find us, and we'd love it if you subscribe to our podcast, left us a rating and review. This helps us to get more traction with this podcast, attract more great guests, and help deliver you more value. We look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.